We go up your custom streaming service. So I don't know if we're live yet. Are we live on your channel?
It says, I see it now. I see the actual thing.
Uh-huh.
Oh yeah, we're live. We're live.
We are.
Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Hello, hello, and welcome. Got music playing in the background. Let me see if I can turn that off. Welcome to another show, Accentuating the Positive with Gaur and Swain. I decided to do this one live, less editing. So you're going to hear all the mistakes. I can't edit them out. And I've got the fabulous Neil Gaur on the show with me again today. G'day, Neil. Welcome to another conversation.
Thank you, Karen. I always love being here with you.
Yeah, so Neil reached out to me, I think at the end of last year, and said, I want to talk about ancient history and, true history and what's going on with all that sort of stuff. And I said, oh, yeah, that sounds good. And then we connect because we've tried to connect a few times this year and it hasn't happened. And he's like, what are we talking about today? I said, ancient history. And he goes, maybe we can talk about the Arcturians and galactic heritage. So we're going to go all around the shop
Everywhere.
today with all
Yes.
that sort of stuff. I'm sure I've had Neil on the show, I don't know, a few times. I'm sure people that have watched my shows know who Neil is. He's the founder and creator of Portal to Ascension, which puts on webinars and seminars and events and, showcases the New World teachers all over the world. And tell people where you are at the moment. You're in the Yucatan.
Yeah, I'm in the Yucatan Peninsula, just an hour south of Cancun in a place called Playa del Carmen. So not like, I'm about 2 hours from Chichen Itza.
Whoa. So what are you doing there?
Well, over the last 10 years, I got separated from my ex 2 years ago, right? 2.5 years ago. And then in the last 2.5 years, I've lived here for almost like 11 months on and off. So it's kind of my home base. And then in the 8 years before that, I was coming down every year for a few weeks anyway to the Yucatan because of my connection to the Mayan people. I have a deep connection to the Mayan. So the first time I came down here, I literally felt like kissing the ground. It was
Wow.
um, it was a feeling of like I'd been there before for two birthdays in a row because I'd always come down. This is like a hidden secret for everybody who wants to visit here. Best time of year to come is November to the end of December. January to March, it's high season. November to 7, great weather. So I would come for my birthday in November and I would just be on like sitting on a pyramid for all day of my birthday. And I feel like I've had many lives as a Maya. So I felt that connection. And I don't know if you know this, but I was living in England for the last 6 months, and it was cool. I was born there. A lot of energy, a lot of things coming up for me to the surface. I had to deal with. And after kind of having a rough time in England, I felt I needed to go back to somewhere where I felt nurtured and was a very familiar place. So I'm here now, basically rebuilding a lot of things that personally for myself and also for the business.
Wow. So you feel connected to the Mayans. Let me put
Hmm.
myself back on screen. Do you know what happened to the Mayans? Like there's a lot of hearsay about where they went, where they came from, who they were. Have you delved into that? Have you had any past life group regressions with that? What's your take
Yeah,
on what's going
that's
on?
a good question because so a lot of times when we look at like ancient aliens or alternative history kind of shows, you find a lot of awareness about the Mayans disappearing, that they were here no longer exist, right? And some people say that they moved to the fifth dimension. And I actually created a presentation on my YouTube channel that specifically is called Where Did the Mayans Vanish To? Right? It's a 30-minute presentation just about that. And it's kind of a clickbait because they didn't really vanish. So what happened is there was
Uh-huh.
one city in North Guatemala that had a huge population disappear. We don't know where they went, right? So that was the one that we have blanket statement the whole of the Mayan civilization. But and then in regards to where the Mayan are now, there's over 1 million Mayan descendants that are almost pure-blooded Mayans still living here, right?
Yeah.
So and so a lot of the Mayans still existed, and then there's a third element. What occurred was that the Mayan Peninsula, the Mayan civilization, they expanded into Guatemala, into Belize, into mid Mexico and central Mexico, and of course the Yucatan Peninsula. There was a migration from north of the Yucatan into the south of the Yucatan during two cataclysmic events and also drought that occurred. So the Chiapas region, if anybody out there knows about Chiapas, Chiapas region is north of the Yucatan, and it basically is where Palenque is. So for example, when the conquistadors came and they started exploring that area first before they found the Yucatan, the first places that they went to were completely abandoned Mayan sites. There was no one living there except for rural farmers and other ancient tribes that have taken over that area. So there was a huge migration that occurred from north into the south. And that was because there was an asteroid impact in 700 AD that took place in around Palenque area, and it just shifted the climate and shifted the whole area, and they moved down south. So there was one migration that happened that was just a conventional migration based on the cataclysmic impact for that area. There was another migration that happened where one city disappeared, hundreds of thousands of people. And then the other reality is a lot of people say, like I was taught, I was in school and college, that the Mayans disappeared, right? Similar to what they might want you to think in North America. Oh, the Native Americans disappeared. They don't tell you, hey, they were killed from diseases and war, right?
And
But
wiped
there's
out.
over 1 million people here still that are Mayan. There's like 20 plus dialects of Maya. In the central Yucatan Peninsula, they only stopped teaching Maya as the first language 5 years ago. So
Wow.
they were still teaching people this, but now Spanish has become the number one language in the middle of the Yucatan, whereas only as recent as 5 years ago, they were being raised with Maya dialect first before they even got taught Spanish.
Wow. I have
Mhm.
a recollection that we've had this conversation before. We might have had this conversation
Maybe.
before. But yeah, the Mayans, because they were one of those civilizations that were highly evolved, one of those civilizations on the planet where our normal history says, oh no, that didn't exist. They were primitive. And yet there's proof of all these highly evolved civilizations. Now, I read in a book, I can't remember which book it was, that there's been at least half a dozen civilizations on this planet that have evolved to heightened states, I suppose.
Mhm.
Lemuria, Atlantis, and then they've been wiped out, and then we've started again. But that's happened like maybe half a dozen times, not just once with the Atlanteans and Lemurians or the Mayans. That's happened quite a few times. What do you
Yeah,
know about that?
exactly. Yeah, so the Mayans, like, I feel that that localized community that actually we don't have evidence for where they went, they could have gone anywhere. They could have even traveled somewhere else in the world and set up a colony there, right? But we know that the Mayans were actually working on spiritual information, spiritual awareness. They had the god Quetzalcoatl. They had their own version of the serpent god. They had stories and depictions of celestial craft moving in the sky, right? And all and an obvious connection also to India. That's a whole other story, right? You can look on the internet and type in the Mayan connection to ancient India, and you'll start seeing that there's a lot of similarities. And I'll give you one. Like one of them is the word Maya is actually a Sanskrit word. So in Sanskrit, Maya means illusion. So the Mayans are the people of the illusion, right? And that becomes very interesting if you just think about what does that even mean? The people of the illusion, are we in a simulation? How advanced was their awareness? Were they aware that's that? And did they call themselves that because they realized we are the Maya, we are the people manifesting the illusion? Also, if you hear the Mayan speak, like the Mayan dialect, when I first time I heard the Mayan speak, I thought I was listening to ancient Sanskrit mantras.
Ah,
Yeah, so the language is very similar too. I met a shaman down here that he's from Mexico City, so he has Aztec roots, but he also teaches Mayan shamanism and also Lakota shamanism. He's combined a lot together. He's traveled to India too. He's an adamant believer that the ancient Indians had some sort of teleportation technology that took them to the Mayan Peninsula in order to basically start that civilization out there. And I'll just add this part to it. So what it seems is like this gets now to the cycles of time, right? You're aware of the cycles of time, the
yeah,
four
yeah.
ages.
The
So
Yugas.
just for anybody out there, I mean, I speak about it all the time now. So for anybody out there who isn't aware, the four ages, right? The Yuga cycles, every ancient civilization speaks about them. And I even have a presentation where I show 200 civilizations in small print that all speak about it, just to show you that this is real. But only in India do we have dating. The rest of them talk about the periods of what people acted like during that time, right? So when it comes to looking at the cycles and when we go from one age to another age, there's a transitionary phase. And it seems that when we fall from grace, right, fall from grace biblical term that's completely connected to a reality of falling from one age to another age. When we fall from grace, say that we're in a higher age and now we're falling into a lower age. There's all these people within the age before that do not want to fall into a lower age because they're aware that that's happening, right? And it seems that there's a restructuring of society where people from that other age go and find each other across the world and create a colony with all these different influences and cultural influences from around the world in order to try to maintain the consciousness of the age before, right? I'll give you one example, the Indus Valley civilization. Okay, so we'll take a little detour and talk about Indus Valley, and then we'll go back to connecting to the Maya, right? So the Indus Valley civilization, around 3000, 4000 BC, the end of one age in the beginning of another Yuga cycle. And when we look at that civilization, we have all this evidence that it was migration routes from Egypt, migration route from Mesopotamia, Eurasian steppes, North Eurasia, modern day Ukraine and Russia, coming down south, Iranian farmers coming from the Aryan mountains, and it's all these people started coalescing together. Now we don't see any hierarchy there. There's no evidence of kings or queens there. There's no evidence of organizational structure there. There's no buildings with names on it of who built the buildings like all the other places during that time, right? It seems like it was a society trying to mimic the civilizations that existed before and maintain a non-hierarchical organization where everybody was seen, heard, and I guess appreciated, There's no evidence for war. Even when they disappeared, there's no weapons, there's nothing, right? So the Mayan civilization, in my opinion, and from researching and speaking to some even tour guides around here that have had time to think about it even more, it seems that, first of all, Palenque, right? Palenque is much older than what we've been told it is, like many places in the world. And there's evidence in Palenque of actual Hebrew writing, right? Like ancient Aramaic kind of Hebrew text. There's evidence of dragon-like structures that look exactly like the dragon structures in China, right? There's also a symbol there that looks like a chakra symbol. And so the theory is that when the Mayan civilization first got created, the Mayan people, what did they look like? They look like an indigenous from the Americas. They look like an Indian person from India. They look like a Chinese person all got together and had a baby, So it's like so basically one of the tribes of Solomon, right, left, and an Indian civilization left. People from all over the world left during the fall of an age, and they coalesced in the Mayan civilization area. They came together around maybe 3000, same time as the Indus Valley civilization, and then they shared all their ideas of the civilization they had before, right? And then they created a civilization combining all this ancient wisdom, all these spiritual truths, and founded the Mayan Empire. At that time, they probably looked very different. Fast forward 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 years later, and the 4,500 years later, when the conquistadors showed up, right? And that's conventional timing. I'm not talking about expanding it, right? 4,500 years later, it's a mixed race of people that look pretty much very similar to one another, right? Because they've been intermingling for so long. And now you have the Mayan civilization. So my theory is that they were at an advanced state of consciousness. However, when you exist for that long, you're also, unless you have some sort of technology, you're also quote unquote victim to the cycles of time. So we start seeing things like ritualistic sacrifice and things like that, worshiping the gods in a way that is kind of like a lack mentality that we need to do this in order to get this. We start seeing that in Mayan civilization. And since that's what we're taught, we start thinking that, oh, this civilization was primitive. This is the way they acted, right? What we don't realize is that if we look back far enough, we see that there was more of an evolved state of consciousness, and over time it devolved. And then, of course, then they get invaded, and then it becomes a warlike civilization. So that's kind of my theory on what happened down here.
Whoa. Well, wow. There's a couple of comments here. Julianne says, can the Palladians be spoken about? I wonder if the Palladians had anything to do with the Mayans at all. Where did they come from? Did they come from, what planet did they come from? And pieces are destiny, everything, love has no corners. couple of comments here.
Well,
Yeah,
it's
so
interesting because Maya is a planet in the Pleiades as well.
it is.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
do you think that they came from the, let me ask you, how big is the Pleiades? Do you know? Like, is it just massive, a massive constellation of planets?
I don't know, but since we're here having fun, let's figure it out together. All right, cool. Well, it's 17.5 light years across. Okay, hundreds of stars. So, first of all, we call it the seven sisters, right? The
Sisters.
seven stars. That's because that's what we can see from Earth, and those are the biggest ones. But there's actually hundreds of stars there, 17.5 light years across, and it's located 444 light years away from Earth. That's pretty cool.
So let's go there for a holiday.
I know, right? So the connection to the Pleiades, hardcore connection to the Pleiades, actually. And because, I have a whole presentation that I did recently where I have 2 slides dedicated to the Maya and the Pleiadian connection. But honestly, like did it so long ago, I don't remember all the details. All I can say that there's a lot of numerology connected to that. Even when we see the number 7 showing up multiple times in the Maya, it's their connection to the Pleiades. Some time ago as well, I created a different presentation, and one slide on there was me trying to show how many ancient civilizations claim to have a connection to the Pleiades. So if you look on the internet and you type in something like ancient civilizations that speak about the Pleiades, it will take you to a Wikipedia page. There will be hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of ancient civilizations listed on the Wikipedia page with a link, right? This is when I did it before, hopefully it's still out, with a link to each of those civilizations. You click on it, it takes you to the Wikipedia page with a highlighted area about the Pleiades, right? So many ancient cultures spoke about the connection to the Pleiades. And this is a great conversation getting with you now. It's like, so my understanding is that we are all seeded from star beings, and that specific races on the planet, we all have a common genetics of the main species that was on the planet before we were maybe divinely orchestrated to have become sentient beings, or before we became who we are now, right? So it seems like there was some sort of species on the planet, and then there was an intervention. And it could be that there was multiple interventions from different races for different beings on the planet, and that there were hubs and central areas that different races had control over on the planet. And that's why we have the variations from, for example, people from Asia, from people from Europe, from the indigenous people in the North America. There's such huge variations that isn't just based on climate and, the elements, but is based on an actual genetic difference that was based on a specific ET. And so that is something I believe. But when it comes to the Pleiades, it seems like there's a general connection of the Pleiadians to all civilizations across the planet. That even Barbara Messiniak in Bringers of the Dawn, she calls the Pleiadians the original Earthlings, right?
Right.
So just think about what that means. Well, the thing is that they were here before humans even started coming onto Earth. They left Earth to avoid when the Syrians and the Lyrians came to Earth. The Pleiadians left because they didn't want to interact with them. That was the beginning of it all. Ultimately, they ended up working together, but they were here. The Pleiadians we know as the Pleiadians was supposedly here on Earth before they even moved to the Pleiades.
Yeah.
What's your take on it?
New here on YouTube says the Pleiades come from a place of light. Yes and no. I mean, the thing about a cosmos or a constellation that's that huge, there's all sorts of different levels of consciousness and dimensions, and some is light and some are physical and some are denser than others. And, it's just so vast, so vast. We can't pigeonhole one race of galactic race into an idea. We just can't, like with the Arcturians or the Greys or whatever. We can't pigeonhole humans into one idea of what a human is. There's so much variety. What's my take on it? Well, here's the thing. I had this guy on the show a few times, Samuel Chong. Have you met Samuel? So he is he's moving forward in the world promoting the book called The Thoba Prophecy, which was a book originally called Abduction to the Ninth Planet, which was a French-Australian guy in the 80s, was taken by these 9-foot hermaphroditic ETs to their home planet And they gave him all this information, and they also showed him how their civilization worked. They said that they were a 9th category planet, not dimension, 9th category. But they gave him so much information. He put it in a book. His mission was to put it in a book. He put it in a book. And in the 90s, he tried to get the book out, and he got a lot of flack. He got a lot of ridicule. You know, he got a lot of people that were interested, but a lot of ridicule. And then he retired to Vietnam and became reclusive and said, "Leave me alone." And then he died in 2018. But the information in that book is extraordinary. Have you read it? It actually goes into exactly where we all come from. And they've given the name of the planets, names that I have never heard before, like Aribo X, and sort of names that are kind of like, you know, numbers in a way. And so in the book, it talks about the yellow and the black people were the first humans on Earth. And they came from Aribo X. They came from these different planets. So there was a civilization, a race overseeing this, because that planet was crowded or whatever, and Earth was, it was okay to put life on Earth at that time. But there were these galactic people overseeing the sort of migration from one planet to another. And this was back in the time where Gondwana land was like this massive continent, where Australia didn't exist. It was just this massive continent. So it was way before the Earth changes and we see what we see on planet Earth now. And then I asked, well, Samuel, I mean, he's the expert on he's not the person that wrote the book, because Michel Desmarquet, the French guy, he's now deceased, but you know, like all the black races on Earth, there's so many and they're so diverse. Do they come from one race? And he said, yeah, like over time, over billions of time, with intermixing and, you know, DNA, we've created all these black races. But the Indigenous Australians say that they're like the first humans, right? And it sort of lines up with the information that came from the book, because the black people that they were called back then they were seeded on the land that was called Gondwana land, which then went on to become Australia. But they migrated across the planet, obviously, and the yellow people, and there were wars. And anyway, it's fascinating information. You'll have to read the book, Neil.
Yeah, and someone's asking what the name of the book is again.
It's the Tayuba, or like Thai food, Thayuba. Some people say Tayuba Prophecy. And it's a free download, because Michelle's, you know, dead. You can find a free download, the PDF online, or you can buy it. I think you can still buy it on Amazon. Yeah, it's absolutely a fascinating read. But
very interesting.
So I've read it several times. And I was talking to my guides, and I said, who are these Thayubans, these 9-foot hermaphroditic? So they're hermaphrodites. When Michelle was taken on the ship, he thought he was just amongst women, because they had breasts and they had long hair. And then he said to Tao, who was his guide, where are the men on your planet? And Tao laughed and he said, oh, well, we're all hermaphrodites, so we're both male and female. And he goes, oh, you kind of all look female, because you've got mammary glands. And yeah, so it was really interesting. They had evolved into unity, where the sex was no longer, you know, separation, because it's a physical race. It's not like our friend on YouTube said, it's a light. They're not light beings. They're still in physical structure, but they're in this 9th category planet. So they're masters of manifestation, in that they have the mental agility to levitate and, you know, to create at will. And they do have technology on this planet, like I think it was called a Lashiliac, which is like an anti-gravitic force field that goes around them, so they can fly across the planet. So no cars, no spaceships, just energy technology. And even their houses are energy technology. So they're called dokos, and they look like an egg. And there's massive ones and smaller ones. And it looks like it's solid from the outside. It's solid enough that a bird can sit on it, but it's actually a force field, and you move through it. And when you move through it, it's like from the outside, you can't see in, but from the inside, you can see out. Tell you what else is interesting about this race, Neil.
Yeah,
is that when night came, they said to Michelle, you probably want to go to sleep when night comes, because on our planet, we don't have any lights, because our eyes, a bit like animals' eyes, see perfectly in the dark. So we see as clearly in the dark as we do in the day. So we have no need for lighting. And I just thought, whoa, you know, imagine flying over their planet. It's a completely dark planet. You know, you fly over Earth at night and you see all these lights everywhere.
So it's a
Yeah.
completely dark planet, so they don't have a sun, or how does that work?
Oh no, they have a sun. They have a sun. You know, it does say in the book where it's from, and it doesn't say
But
it's
at
the
night,
Pallades. But when I was talking to my guides, I'm like, who are these people? Who are these people?
yeah.
And my guides said this to me. They said, well, in the past, you have called them the Palladians. And I said,
Mm.
okay. And he said, they're not
But
exactly the
you
Palladians.
said your guide said that to you? You
My
got that
guide
down?
said that. Yeah.
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 So that's the thing, like, and when I first got into this information awareness, 2001, 2002, and then for years after that, I was listening to channeling and I was calling myself an Arcturian and going really hardcore with like that identification with that, right?
Right.
And and to be honest, like I feel there is ego involved in identifying with specific races because of
Right.
the themes that you identify with. It's like, oh yeah, I'm so great with this. And the reason why I identified it with Arcturians is because they really have advanced technology. And I knew it was like I was technologically minded. I was raised as an Indian kid with a conservative Indian family.
Uh-huh.
Technology is the way it goes. And when I started creating webinars for people and events and conferences and everything, I was realizing it's technological. And so I started saying, oh, I'm Arcturian because of that. And now, fast
Right.
forward to now, I really do feel a huge connection to it. And then my awareness started shifting to realizing, well, Earth is a gift to very advanced souls. You might think that we are,
Yeah.
you might think that this is a punishment on some level, right? But
No.
it's almost like we're kind of masochists, I guess. we we've been done so much, and it's not about like the suffering. It's about, wow, you've done so much, you've created so many experiences. Well, how can we create new experiences for someone who's experienced so much? Well, hey, wait a second, why don't we make them forget that they had all those experiences, wipe their brains, send them to a planet of complete physicality, and see if they can remember. That's pretty much the the oversimplification of the game. So I feel a lot of us have incarnated hundreds of thousands, millions of times, and we have been all types of beings, all types of races. So my
Absolutely.
awareness shifted from like, hey, I'm Arcturian to, well, I've been everything. And then I heard Dolores Cannon say, she said something that resonated, which was that the theme of specific incarnations are relevant to our journey now on Earth. So you might say, hey, I'm Arcturian, but you might have lived 3 times as many lives in the Pleiades. But because of what you did in Arcturus, maybe even the trauma of what happened there that you're working through now, right?
Right.
And whatever you did there is so relevant, we identify with those specific areas. And that's the human condition, is to label things. We identify with it, we label it. And ultimately, do these beings even call themselves Pleiadians? Because who came up with the word Pleiades? The
Well, that's
Greeks,
exactly right. That's exactly
you
right. And
know?
that's the discussion I had with my mob, because I chat to them all the time. It's like having this group of teachers that I talk to all the time. And they said, think about when you went to Europe, Karen, when I was like 18, the first time I went to Europe. And my auntie had said to me, how do you know when you get on the train, how do you know that you're going to be at the station? And I said, I'm going to Florence in Italy. And I said, well, it'll have a sign saying Florence. And it said, well, the Italians don't call Florence Florence, they call it Firenze. And that's what they said. It's like, you call us the Palladians, but what do
Yeah,
we call us? Like we have a different language, so we have a different label. And they use that memory for me. And I'm like, oh, okay. So we're saying that the Palladians and the Arcturians and the Syrians and the Orions, like we've given these people labels, but they don't call themselves that. So
yeah.
this book, like the Tayubans, when I asked them, are you the Palladians? And they said to me, well, you have called us Palladians, but we don't call
Mhm.
ourselves Palladians. And I
Right.
don't even think they're in the Palladian constellation. I'm not sure about that. But yeah, so right, you're right. I've also said to the
'Cause-
mob, where have I been in the cosmos? What's my galactic
mhm.
heritage? You know what they said to me, Neil? They said, oh, Karen, they said, do you think you're any less curious outside this human body than you are inside this human body? You've been everywhere, man. And I'm like, yeah, I
That's
can
so
imagine.
funny.
I know. I
That's
know.
so
All right.
funny.
Yeah, I've
Yeah.
been everywhere. But yeah, the
Well, if there's
Arcturians.
if there's multiple beings like in the Pleiades, okay, so we got Pleiadians connecting with us, hundreds of stars there, probably thousands of beings in different dimensional experiences. multiple of those beings probably have agendas and connections to Earth, right? And they're probably different civilizations. So it's almost like saying Palladian might actually be a group of 10, 20, 100, 1,000 different races from that area that all have different intentions for us, right? So it's like, what are they? Who are these individual beings? And to me, I feel part of, this year and moving forward is to us to get out of these blanket statements of these beings and start actually getting into the specific intentions and connections.
Absolutely.
And I feel that's going to happen soon because we're going to have open contact. We're going to start interacting with these beings. And we'll be calling them by maybe the frequency names. A good example is there's a group of beings in Orion, and they have a huge connection to the history of Orion. I think they're on the second star and the 3 stars in the belt, and they're called the Netiru, right? And they have a huge connection to Egypt. So it's like, instead of calling them this one thing, let's start dialing into the specific frequencies. That's something my curious mind is interested in seeing coming out of channelers, is start really saying, like, who are you? Instead of saying Palladian, like, what is this specific intention? What is the agenda? What do you want to be called?
Exactly, because we're so rooted in identity here on Earth and labeling and putting names on things. And many Star Nation races don't use identity and labeling. They use energy signatures, what is called an energy signature, a bit like how you identify a soul when you're outside of a body. So you're not identifying them by what you're looking at their face, like, and what they're wearing. You're identifying them by frequency. Yeah, exactly. And
a lot of them don't speak words,
right? Yeah,
we do the best we can with the tools that we have.
Yeah, exactly. I know we've got a lot to learn. We've got a lot to learn, but we've also got a lot of galactic ambassadors on the planet that can teach us, that have memory, like you, like me, like many that have memory of lives on other planets, so that when we do interact with our Star Nation brothers and sisters, it's going to be a totally different game on Earth when that happens. It's very exciting. I just hope it happens before I leave the planet. I've been talking about age and aging a lot lately on the show, and manifestation. I thought I would focus the show this year, which is why I started the show like 15 years ago on radio. I wanted to talk about law of attraction and how we are the creators of our reality. Because I tell you what, the Arcturians are the ones that have spoken to me about it. They said, your agility, the way that you focus as humans, the way that you understand yourself as creators is just so preschool. You really need to understand this technology of how you create your reality, including your physical body and the health in your body, and including, the way that your body ages or doesn't. And so this is a conversation I've had a lot lately. Have you got any words to say about that?
Yeah, well, I'd love to hear more on that, because, like, I'm just ready, open to receive more Arcturian information. So I'd love for you to go deeper if you want to in a minute. But I would say that we are kind of, basically, when we exist within a specific dimension, we have control of the dimensions below us, right? So we're in my opinion, the 4th dimension, which is time. Well, it's not really time. It's actually a position within the 3 dimensions. So you have the 3 dimensions, length, width, and height, right? Length, width, height. And then the 4th dimension only exists when something is lodged within those 3 dimensions. Now you have an actual object existing within those 3. So we're within that 4th dimensional reality. And we have control over 3rd, 2nd, and 1st dimension, including beings and that are of those realities. And in this dimension, we're kind of a victim to time, because we're lodged within it. We're not transcending it. So the whole 5th dimensional reality is us shifting into the higher reality beyond the 4th, being the time of the astral realm. And when we're in the 5th reality, we're able to have control and manipulate in a conscious way the ones below that, right? And so that includes aging and the whole process. So what you shared about what the Arcturians shared resonates with me, because it kind of implies that we are right now, something I love to say a lot is, we are actors on a stage that forgot we're acting. So, like, we're walking down the street, someone punches us in the face, and we start freaking out, not realizing that was a part of the script.
Yeah, it's in the script. You're like,
right?
Did that happen? Read the script.
This is gonna be a silly example, but So what was happening now is us realizing that we're the actors, but also realizing we're the directors and the writers of the script.
And the
And
creators, yeah,
and the
exactly.
creators of it. So
Yeah.
that's what the process of awakening is realizing, hey guys, you forgot that you wrote this whole thing. You wrote it, you forgot you wrote it, and then you stumbled into your own act. You know what I'm saying? So it's
Yes,
like,
I do know
so
what you're
it's like
saying.
right now, it's time for us to realize that we're the directors. And what happens when you become the director? You rewrite the code,
Yeah,
including the way you age.
you
So that's why they say fifth dimension and above, you no longer mourn death, you choose when you die,
yes,
and you celebrate it because you always feel
yes,
connected, you know? So
yes,
yeah.
yes. Yeah, my father died about 18, 20 years ago. And for me, it was a celebration. It was the first time that I experienced someone close to me die where I saw it as this transitioning, exiting the matrix, I call it. And yeah, I kind of put on the persona of that sad because we're still entrenched in the tragedy of death. I have a girlfriend whose brother just died yesterday, a couple of days ago, Saturday, and she's in the tragedy of the death thing. But when you speak to spirits from the other side, there's no tragedy. Like Esther Hicks said it so beautifully. At some stage, when you're in the cinema watching the movie, you'll get up and you'll leave the cinema, you'll leave the movie. Like it's that simple to the ones that have transitioned. It's like I exited that movie. I was done with that movie. I finished, I watched it for long enough. We're out of here. But yeah, exactly. Oh, there's so much to say. There's a great conversation with Nassim Harriman and the Mind Valley guy, his name Vishan.
Yeah.
And he was asked, because much of what Nassim says goes over my head, but he's told a story and I'm like, right, I can understand this. He was asked about going back in time and changing the DNA. And he said he did it with his nose. He said he had a big lump on his nose and he lived with a woman that had these two little kids that used to knock him as an Australian. They used to laugh at his big nose. And so one night in a meditation, he went on an energetic spiral back in time, found himself in the womb of his mother, maybe even when the egg and the ovum were meeting, the sperm and the ovum were meeting, and he changed the gene for the bump on his nose. And then he spiraled back to this time. And then when he woke up in the morning, he walked into the kitchen and he had a different nose. Like not dramatically different. He still has a big nose, but different to the nose he had the night before. And the
Wow.
kids freaked out. Like they freaked out. So what the Arcturians say to me, I had this fabulous conversation with a girl called Jules Arnez. You got to get her on the show. I don't know if you've had her on the show about
Galactic
manifesting.
historian?
No, she calls herself bioquantum, becoming
Okay.
bioquantum. She's great. She's beautiful. She's wonderful. Love her. I'll introduce you. Anyway, so we had this great conversation, but she's talking about the intelligence of the body. Like we always say, consciousness informs matter. And she's actually saying matter informs consciousness. So the consciousness of the body intelligence, when you tune into that, that will inform your consciousness. It's an interesting conversation. But what the Arcturians have shown me about this is that when you see everything as energy, then you know how to mold energy. You don't see things as solid or concrete or real. Like we create cemented reality that's true, that's happening, that's real because of what we believe about it. We see it as it just is. This is real. So our beliefs create this. A friend said to me years ago, thoughts can be as real as concrete, as solid. Thoughts can be as solid as concrete. I loved the way she explained it. Yeah, and our thoughts. But when you understand that everything is energy, this body that you're wearing is an organization of energy. Well, once you understand how to reorganize the energy, you can change your body structure. You can change your DNA. You can change the way your body ages. You can change anything. Now, Neil, I have not mastered this. I'm playing with it. I am playing with it because I'm a human and I'm still entrenched in this is real and this is how it is. But I have had, years ago, I had a friend who was making vibrational essences and she was working with the vibrations and she said that her body structure completely changed. Like she had big hips, and then she had small hips. Like, she had a completely different body structure as she was working with the vibrational essences that she was making. I also met a man years ago who went to see John of God, and he sat in meditation, and he had always had sinus problems and eye problems. And he said his face swelled up like he was punched in the face. And then when the swelling went down and he put his glasses back on, his whole bone structure had completely rearranged itself. His glasses didn't fit anymore. And all the sinus problems and the sight problems he'd had before had gone. So he'd had this operation in a meditation. Yeah. So anything's possible when we see the world as energy, as an organization of energy, rather than solid and real.
Right. And that's the trick, is shifting your belief system to get to that point. Because as you're speaking, I'm realizing that, we have not only the belief systems of you just being in this world and what we're fed through media and upbringing, but we have ancestral lineages and genetic beliefs in ourselves as well, that are a part of, our ancestors believe that they were limited within these frequencies.
Exactly.
They did things specific ways. So those are all things that we have to transcend. And something else that I'm like, I guess, playing with this theory, but I guess it's really, for me, I feel like it's a knowing in me, is that there's specific belief systems that go into different cycles, right? There's individual belief systems, right? And those individual ones can be like, you can actually shift your consciousness, your food, and the things around you, and take certain tools to heal from sicknesses that they say there's no cure for, like a cancer, for example, right? And then there's collective belief systems, right? And to give another silly example, in this world, anybody could probably travel all around the world to specific areas and where it's very high amount of people and experience traffic, like car traffic. And it's almost like that's a collective belief system of the reality we all chose to subscribe to, that is always going to be there. And the only way, right, that's one out of millions of belief systems that are collective, Earth belief systems. The only way that belief system will be changed and disappear overnight is if there's a majority of the people on the planet that all shift their belief around that even having to be real, right?
Critical mass.
Exactly. So you have your individual ones that you can do yourself. Then there's the collective ones. Now, which ones are collective? Is age a collective belief system? That also is partially, exactly, right? And is the bandwidth of frequency of the third and fourth dimension a collective belief system? Probably. And age is a part of that. And then we go into a solar systematic belief system. Now, all the beings that live or have lived within our solar system all have to subscribe to another set of rules, right? And so they have their own planetary belief systems and everything, but they have a universal one. Then I think it goes even further. There's a galactic belief system. There's a universal one. There's a multiverse. I don't know how far it goes, right? But all of these are things we need to transcend. So that's why, like, we could literally shift overnight if we hit critical mass on certain things. This world is illusionary. This world is a simulation. This world is magic manifest, right? Subatomic reality manifests in the physicality. If that's the case, if this is a very advanced code, why can't we just change the code? Well, it's because the majority of us don't realize that we can do that. So
majority
that's
of us
why it's important. Like, so you whole thing about age and everything, if we inform more people about this truth, and if we're taught about this reality from day one as we're born, right, then we could all change that reality just like that. So the solutions are very simple. Teach us the truth from the beginning, but getting the dumb to do it is like the hard part.
The solutions are simple, but simple solutions are not always practiced. There's so many simple solutions to the problems on our planet. Are they happening? No. Greed, power, like the simple solutions. But getting back to your collective, collective consciousness and collective thought forms. The age thing. I was, talking to the mob about, I call my guides the mob very reverently, about age. And funnily enough, I was sitting on the toilet and they said this to me. As I said, they talk to me all the time anywhere. They said, look, Karen, age is more about your collective understanding than anything else. Like, you count the years and you say that at this age this happens, and at this age this is how you look. And there's this massive collective consciousness around what you're supposed to look like at a certain age. And most people like dip their toe into that fast flowing stream of collective thought and just ride that, ride that energy. And to sort of take yourself out of that matrix, if you like, or out of that fast flowing stream of belief, it's a challenge because you're not moving with the flow of the collective. You're stepping outside, which is kind of what we've all been doing, like everyone on Portal to Ascension, everyone on my show. But yeah, sometimes you dip your toe back in and you get swept up in it all. You know what I mean? You go
Exactly.
down the river.
There's like almost 10 years ago now, a group of Russian scientists, they were looking for the genome within our DNA to say that we should die, right?
Right.
The genome that causes telomere destruction and whatever, because now they've got to a place where they know what specific genes do what in our DNA, and they couldn't find it, right? And their solution to this whole thing was that there is no actual code in our body for us to decay and die.
Yeah.
So for me, what I took from that esoterically is that we have agreed upon this. We have been told that this is how it should be. So we have now subscribed to it. If we didn't have all the pollution and the pharmaceuticals and the food in the way that it is right now on this planet, we would live longer anyway, right? So if we shifted two things, the external reality that creates decay, right? A lot of people, for example, they die at age 80, 90. And a lot of the things that we eat and a lot of pharmaceuticals we take decay your organs at an earlier rate.
Yeah.
So you don't know that that's why you died. You might have been eating specific diet your whole life, and at 80 years old, you died, right? And it's actually because the food decays your organs at an early rate. It doesn't kill you. It just makes everything age quicker, right? So it's like that. And so with that coupled with our belief systems, we can change that reality. And what's happening now, as you know, is like people are realizing that we're quantum beings. Mm-hmm. So an understanding of the way reality works is shifting. And when I think more people realize, hey, well, actually, what this study should be worldwide. Everybody should know that there is nothing in our genes to say we're dying. And if we spend some more spend more time studying it, putting research into, well, why is it that there is nothing saying that we're dying or we're still dying? If that was something that we looked into rather than funding endless wars, right? And imagine what could happen. So rerouting the finances to actually exploring things. And it's interesting because it's not even far-fetched. All that is out there right now, all it needs is us to delve into these concepts deeper.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Sorry, I was just looking at people listening to us on put me back on.
We have a question here, though. I want to ask you this question, Karen. We have a question.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Mm-hmm. I think maybe you might have something to say about this. Julian Grace is saying, how do our pets evolve with us?
Oh, interesting. How do our pets evolve with us?
Well, what happens to pets and animals? Do you have ever thought of that?
Yeah, I have. I've had a lot of thoughts about that. And there are different intentions when coming into an animal form. Like that, I think that the Vedas and that sort of religious say that we evolve out of animal form into more sophisticated forms and we don't go backwards. But there are beings that dip their toe into the third dimension, and it's easier to live an animal life than it is a human life. They're not battering the human ego and depression and all that sort of thing. So it's easy to sort of see what density is like, what this organization of energy is like on Earth when you're in an animal form. And then so they're sort of less advanced in that they're not less advanced souls, so to speak. They're just less advanced at the human experience or the Earth experience. And then there are advanced souls that come into animal form to be guides and partners and like to be here on Earth in an easy life. So they've lived out all their, like they've done the Earth school, they've graduated, they know what it's like to live inside density, but they come as part of their soul family into animal forms, and they're like highly evolved beings that are in animal form. So like again with the aging thing, like I had a cat before the cat I had now that lived to 20, and cats aren't supposed to live to 20. He wasn't sick. She wasn't sick. I just said to her, look, I'm not going to do the whole putting down thing. When you've finished your life, just leave and that'll be cool. And that's exactly what she did. Actually, Amma came to town. Do you know Amma, the hugging mother from India? Yeah. So I went with a few friends to see Amma. It was up the road. And she took her transition that night. I fed her that night and she ate and walked straight outside. And I said, oh, good, I didn't have to put you outside because I was going out. And then when I came home the next morning, she just sat under a tree and left her body. And so, she did that. Like, that's an advanced soul that knows how to transition without drama, without sickness, because a lot of cats or dogs or pets get cancers, and then we try and prolong their lives, and then we have to, like, it's a whole drama. So, but so animals, and also the animal form itself is evolving along with the human body, which is evolving. And there's so many cats on Instagram that speak. Haven't you seen them? They say hello.
Yep.
Yeah, but there was something
So,
else I was going to talk about before you asked me that animal question, but it's a great question.
well, so from what you're saying, it's like what do we consider evolution, right? Because are we asking, oh, are they going to evolve? Meaning, are they going to basically not poop everywhere anymore or something? Like start being more civilized or communicating with us,
Well,
right?
haven't you seen
But
cats
from
that
what
go to
you're
the
saying,
toilet?
I know from what you're saying is from what you're saying is that they are already advanced and evolved, and some of them have just taken on the roles to bring in the frequency of that animal, right? And so maybe the ones that are our pets that really connect with us on that level are bringing the frequencies for humanity to help process things, including dolphins. And then there are other ones that are part of the ecosystem of balance, right? Because, for example, if there weren't spiders in the world would go to crap, like all these different things need to happen for the ecosystem to be balanced. Do you feel that I feel maybe when we evolve into this higher dimensional awareness experience, that some of them will be able to consciously communicate with them too through telepathy to some of these animals? Will we get to a point where we don't even need to eat them? I'm not saying anything against people eat meat or people who are vegan. Disclaimer. But will we ever get to a point where we are so consciously connected to them that we don't even need to eat them anymore? And maybe
I
that's
think
because
I
we
think we're
transcend
at that
diet
point.
and food.
I
Yeah.
I think we're at that point, and we've been at that point for a long time. And again, the collective consciousness of just doing it. I had an Italian neighbor who moved last year, but she would say things like, but this is the way we do it. This is the way it's always been done. This is the way we do it. And so I'm vegan and I don't do the dairy thing. And in Italy, everything, like, and she's like, but what, are you crazy? Are you crazy? But this is the way it's always been done. And it's that thought form. It's that collective idea, that tradition. I had this woman on the show. We were laughing one day. She came from an Indian background and she was, had an arranged marriage, and then she was a gay woman. And anyway, it was an interesting conversation, fabulous woman. But we laughed about tradition is peer pressure from dead people. So this peer pressure from dead people,
Yeah.
we just have to change this, what we call
That's so funny.
tradition. I can't remember. I've
Yeah.
lost my train of thought now. What did you ask me? What was the question?
I was talking about food evolving from animals, not eating
Oh
so
yeah.
telepathically.
Like we evolved way out of the need to eat, out of the
Yeah.
need to eat meat years ago, years and years ago, probably hundreds of years ago. It's just tradition that we
Think
do it.
so?
Yeah,
Hmm.
absolutely. It's tradition that we do it. But you've got to understand too that the souls that elect to have a cow's life or a pig's life that gets slaughtered, that's in a cage its whole life, or a chicken, they're choosing that
It
as
shows
much as
that. Yeah, yeah,
anyone else is choosing that. And they're choosing that experience. They're
yeah.
dipping their toe in the density of what it is like to experience a
Experience
life on
that.
planet Earth, and they're understanding suffering from that perspective. So we're
Yeah,
giving them that opportunity to have that very short life. I don't know, weeks, months. How, think about veal
yeah,
in a cage, like, and they're having that opportunity. But I think that Earth is evolving out of that game. There will be
yeah,
other planets where if you want to experience being a chicken that's trampled and you only live for a few weeks, and then you're in somebody's chicken burger, or a veal, like
yeah.
a cow that's
Oh, that sounds so fun.
it's ripped from his mother and then put in a cage and never sit.
Oh,
And then
stop it.
I mean, if you want to experience that,
No,
you're
you
going to
can, you
experience that
can.
on another planet. But we're
Yeah.
moving out of that sort of experience on
All
planet
right.
Earth with
So,
Groundhog Day, with that sort of suffering cycle, into a new cycle of evolution where once we're more conscious of who we are and how we're all connected, then what else can we create? Like what else? We can create telepathic communication and beam me up, Scotty. We can fly around the planet through teleportation and, you know, cities in the sky. I mean, the sky's the limit, what we can create when we move out of these traditional ways of thinking.
Right. I mean, and I say this reluctantly because I'm a foodie, you know what I'm saying? So, but ultimately, like, we need to eat so we can survive. We're in a dimensional reality. So I know we're shifting out of that, but we have had to eat to survive, and that's the belief system we all adopted.
Yeah.
And because we're a victim to the elements, because we're in a reality where, for example, we need to be a certain distance from the sun so that we don't burn or planet doesn't get all iced over and that we could live. We need a certain amount of pressure on our skin. When we go into a higher dimension, the planet can actually shift into a different position, and we have control over the elements. We have control of the sun. We don't need the specific pressure on our skin. We can now live outside those boundaries. And part of that is also eating, that we won't need to eat anymore. So maybe there'll be a transitionary phase where we choose it for the excitement of it all. But see, as a foodie, it's hard for me to say this because people love food. I love food. But maybe we're going to get to a point in the future, 100 years, 1,000 years, who knows, where we just don't need to eat anymore, right?
Yeah.
And because we don't need to eat anymore, there's no reason to kill, right? And that will also probably go hand in hand with us telepathically communicating with other animals. Because one of my beliefs is that Earth is a test of speciesism, galactic racism, that all these beings in the galaxy have donated DNA to all the animals that we see on our planet. And it's almost like the last battlefield of the galaxy, that there's been all this disharmony and chaos and wars and inconsistencies, and all these beings donated DNA to Earth to see if there's an ability for them to eventually all live in harmony by battling it out.
Yeah, exactly.
You know? And I feel that's that's the eventual goal.
Yeah. I think about that with the animal kingdom because the meat eaters say, you know, it's natural to eat meat. Look at the animal kingdom. They eat meat and there's no moral dilemma about a lion killing an elk and ripping into it and splashing its guts all over the place, right? And so I've thought about that as we evolve physically and animals evolve physically. Are there other planets where there are animals where that sort of violence doesn't happen? Like animals don't eat other animals. I mean, there once was this Indian guru that had a tiger and he was a vegetarian tiger. So it was possible to create a tiger's body that runs on just meat, like they're not eating apples off trees and stuffed tigers. And this guru shifted the consciousness of that tiger's body and fed it vegetables, and it survived and was healthy.
Very
so
interesting,
isn't it? It's kind of interesting. But I think there are plenty more battlefields. What's happening on the much better experience than physical, but we volunteer for physical existence. Yeah, there's lots of great questions.
Yeah, we got a lot of people are chiming in on this conversation.
I want to say a few things. That I've got so many things going through. So Jules, the last conversation I had on the show, was saying that a friend of hers died. He was 22 and she was talking to him on the other side, and he was giving her, he had said to her something that you said, just picking up on that thread. He had said, you know, Jules, the human body was created to never die. I mean, the reason that the human body dies, as you say, we're 80, and he said the human body, and then he gave her the download of how that happens. And she said that she's still getting through it and she's going to, you know, release it probably, I think April, I think she might have said she's going to release it. But he was talking about the mitochondria in the cells. So he was also talking about the telomeres. I think that the poisons that we get not only decay our pineal gland, but also decay the telomeres on the end of the DNA, which scientists have said is the reason for aging. But there's a bit more involved. I'm not a scientist, so when I speak to my guides about it, they try and tell me, and I try and wrap my head around what they're talking about. And I say, human mind here, simplify it. But yeah, the human body was designed never to die, and it is possible for it to live as long as you need it to live when you're finished in this dimension. But the reason, you know, so many galactic beings, Star Nation people, have lives, like the Thiobans live for thousands of years. Many other species live for hundreds of years, thousands of years. But we have these short little lives, like 70, 80 years, because the experience here is so intense, and like, how much can you put up with? It's like, okay, I'm done, I'm out of here. So, but as that shifts, we won't need to leave the planet at 80 or 100. We could stay for a couple of 100 years or
And
300 or
that's
400.
the thing with the yuga cycles in India. So that's one thing extra that the Indians speak about for the ages, is that every age, first of all, Kali Yuga, Dwapara Yuga, Treta Yuga, Satya Yuga, right? For everybody out there, Dark Ages to the Bronze Age, the Silver Age, the Gold Age. Satya Yuga, Satya means truth. Every age, upper is twice as long as the other age. The Kali Yuga is this long, the Bronze Age is twice as long, the Silver Age is twice as long, the Golden Age is twice as long, right? That's 13,000 years. But then it reflects on the other side. So even though the Satya Yuga, the Golden Age, is twice as long, it's actually 4 times as long because it's doubled up at the top, right? And within the Indian text, it says at every age, the age of humanity, how long we live, doubles as well. So not only is the Kali Yuga is doubled, but your age also doubles. So Kali Yuga, the age limit based on the Indian text is 120 years. So if it wasn't for pollution, chemicals, belief systems, and all this stuff right now, we would live to 120, right? And so now we're in the next age. Okay, we're officially in it. And so the age limit now is 240 years.
Okay, there
we're
you
already
go.
there. We're already there.
So we just shifted yugas like recently, didn't we? And there was a big planetary shift. There's 2 calendars.
Yeah. So one of them says we shifted like in the 1990s ish.
Right. Okay.
And the one that I go by says we shifted in the 1700s because basically there's a 200-year transitionary phase between cycles. So 1770, right around the Declaration of Independence, the formation of the US, right around then, there was a shift, but there's a 200-year transitionary phase. 100 years at the end of the other cycle, 100 years at the next cycle. So technically, around the beginning of the 19th century, we were fully immersed into the next age. And the reason why that goes hand in hand with the themes of the ages is because the theme of the Kali Yuga, authority, hierarchy, delusion, right?
Yeah.
And yes, we still had delusion for 200 years after that. We still live it now. But the theme of the Dwapara Yuga is sovereignty and energy, okay? Sovereignty, what happened with the foundation of the US, putting aside all of the conspiracy theories that are real, right? And was a structure moving away from the sovereign to we are sovereign, right? From collective mindsets to individuality, right? And so that was the beginning of it all. And then when we fully immersed out of that into the Dwapara Yuga in the early 1900s, we were going into the energy age. So what happened around 1700s into 1800s? Literally energy, electricity, light bulbs, right? What happened when we fully went into the Dwapara Yuga? Quantum physics, Max Planck, Einstein, Tesla, within 5 years of the full immersion into the age, right? What happened during those 200 years, 1700 to 1900? We had Newton, Newton and other physicists that were atheists, okay? They were like, the church, freaking religion has messed with us. This is all BS. Science, electricity, physics, equal and opposite reaction. And then when we went out of it and we went deeper, electricity, what's deeper than that? Subatomic energy. We have Nikola Tesla, Max Planck, and Einstein, very spiritual people, completely making the next level of energy awareness a spiritual understanding. And what is supposed to happen at the end of the Dwapara Yuga, right, which is going to last for hundreds of years, is we master sovereignty and we master energy. What's going on now, part of why we see so much chaos, division, and war in the world is the extreme aspect of not being sovereign, us trying to solve it by being on the opposite side of what it means to be sovereign. So a lot of times when something's happened to us, in order to heal from it, we do the complete opposite. Our parents treated us like this, so I'm going to treat my kid like the complete opposite and smother them, not give them, And so with sovereignty, in the beginning of the Dwapara Yuga, sovereignty backfires. because we become so independent that we forget about the collective good. So what ends up happening at the end of this age is we balance out what it means to be sovereign and also part of the collective. And we end up not realizing electricity, not realizing subatomic energy, but realizing that we're made out of subatomic energy. And
Yeah.
then we become the masters of our energetic field. So that's, what's going on right now.
Yeah. There's a lot going on right now. So
Mhm.
Joyful Jennifer said, wow, 240 years. Yeah, I know, right? That's answered a question because I've been complaining to my mob about aging because like I'm in my 60s now and I'm like, I don't want to get old. I don't want to be an old person. And then I said, no, I think I'm out of here like around 75. I don't want to be an old person. And they said to me, they said, well, we'll review that when you get there. That's just what they say to me. They're like parents, like, we'll review that when you get there. And I'm like, okay.
Don't
But
put a
yeah,
limit on it.
no,
Because
I know.
honestly, like not even what we're talking about now, you can go and like if we spend some time, I can do research, find you YouTube videos and articles that will just show you that conventionally there already found solutions that are out there in the public,
Oh, yeah, yeah,
Not to even mention all the black budget programs where they already have this information out there.
yeah, yeah.
So, and one of the reasons why they haven't disclosed the truth of ETs is because, there's actually like 4 or 5 main reasons, but one of them is the cure and healing of all illnesses, including death. It's
Age,
an illness,
yeah, yeah.
age.
Well, it can
Yeah.
be an illness or it can be, death can be an illness or it can be a choice.
The way that
Yeah.
we age, I'm saying,
Yeah,
like,
the way that we age.
humanity.
Yeah,
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 exactly.
absolutely. I think that most people, as I said, my friend's brother just died and he suffered so horrendously for like 2 years. Like she said he looked like death warmed up for the last 6 or 8 months. So when you go through that amount of suffering, leaving that suffering is a really easy choice. It's like, oh my God, I'm so done with this. I'm out of here. And I
I
think that's
know.
a choice for many people. Like that illness thing is the way they make that transition because their soul is finished exploring what they wanted to explore here. And then we're so afraid of death. Death is like the scariest thing. We give it to our murderers, the death penalty. It's like we've made death so scary that in order to transition, you have to go through so much suffering that it's just easier to die than it is to stay.
Straight up. Well,
But
you do.
yeah,
What's the two biggest fears in the world?
well, death would be one of them, and
Yep.
taxes. I don't
Yo,
know.
public speaking.
Oh yeah, public speaking. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And do you know which one's more people are fearful of more?
yeah. Public speaking.
Yeah. And so I've had a lot of time to think about this, and I feel the reason why we're not afraid of death all the time is because we're not always thinking about dying, but we're
Right.
always thinking about publicly speaking, you know. And
What?
there's certain things because we got to talk all the time to people, interact and stuff. And so what I think happened during the lockdown is that people's priorities shifted as well, to something being on the forefront because of the fear that was around there. Death became a huge topic, and people got confronted with it. And ultimately, I feel we need to have a relationship with death and understand it, and not just know that it's a part of life. Because I can even say that, but honestly, I have fear around it. I have fear around it. So it's like part of this evolution is us rewriting our relationship with what it means to die.
You have fear around death or you have fear around public speaking? Where is your fear like?
Death,
You have
death.
fear around death? Why do you
Yeah.
have fear around death? What's the
Well,
fear?
it's transcended it a lot. I did some plant medicine ceremonies. I did
Uh-huh.
Vipassana, 10-day silent meditation. I would say Vipassana meditations helped me the most. And Vipassana meditation is where I found out I had that fear, and
Oh, okay.
it's interesting because after my first like 2 weeks in the Amazon after plant medicine, um, when I was aware that had this fear of death, on the day I was out of the last day, I switched my phone on in the Amazon on top of a hill, the only place that there was service when I wasn't supposed to switch it on yet. And I have all these missed calls from my parents. And my biggest fear, because I'm always off the grid, away from my family and everything, is that something's going to happen to someone I care about when I'm off the grid, right? And I call my dad and my mom, and my grandmother had just died. And
Oh.
like 2 days before, while I was in ceremony. And I literally couldn't fly home to the US. I had to fly straight to Spain to do her eulogy and go to my first ever funeral and see her cremated. That was like 2 days after my ayahuasca for 2 weeks in the Amazon. So it was very interesting that the universe had presented me with that experience right afterwards. And those moments, I was like, whoa, like there is something within me. There's a huge fear of death. And I can't really tell you why it is. Like, I feel that it's just innately inside of me. It's transcended to some level, but I have been in very dangerous situations over the last 10 years that are like life or death situations. And I'm gonna tell you, I freaked out, I did not want to die, right? So it's like I'm still working on it, there's no real.
Do you think it's
Yeah,
you being swept up in the collective thought form because there's, the fear of death is such a huge river of consciousness on this planet. It's massive.
maybe. Oh, it's also, I feel also maybe a fear of, I put in so much energy in what I'm doing, what I'm creating, and Portal to Ascension, the mission. I also like have a fear that I'm gonna leave before I get to actualize what I'm here to do.
Oh, so it's like, I haven't finished. I haven't finished. I think your soul's got that sorted.
It's like I don't want to waste my time, but even though by just leaving, but even though on some level I realize if I leave, it's when I'm supposed to leave,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the thing. That's what the guides say too. My guides and many other guides, that every exit is a planned exit, whether you were hit by a bus, swept up in a tornado, died of cancer, died, during utero. Every exit is a planned exit. It's
Yeah. So
and
Karen, we have a question here, I think that you maybe want to answer, maybe we both can. So Juliana is asking about the fifth dimension. She wants to know, is it a physical place at all? And what does the fifth dimension look like? You have any
yeah,
insight on that?
that's a good question. I do, but you go for it. What do you say about that?
Well, I think it's physical, and I think it's quasi-physical. Basically, the more we go higher and higher in dimensional experiences, the more we embody more light, right? Because even right now, we are fractalized light. Our atoms are 99% space. It's just we are not as dense as we think we are. So maybe it's more we actualizing our actual light bodies and moving into that, becoming more vibrant and shiny because we're at different harmonic levels of frequencies. But I feel we're going to still have a human experience here. And the goal of humanity, I believe, is because we have, as you know, we have these seven chakras, but there's actually chakras that go beyond that.
Yeah.
And I feel the human body has been created in a way that we have the ability to tap into different dimensional awarenesses, experiences, because every dimension to me is a data set of information, right?
Yep.
From a computer-minded person, I'll put it in the logical standpoint. Fifth dimension, a bunch of data in the universe that we can't access because we're not in that hard drive, right?
Yep.
Sixth, seventh, eighth dimension, bigger motherboards and hard drives of data. We can tap into it. Galactic history, how the Akashic records work, simultaneous time, space travel, who these beings are, how the ancestry connected to us. So I feel that we're meant to be multidimensional beings tapping into, I don't know how many dimensions, maybe the 12 immediate ones of this 13th dimensional construct while we exist in fifth dimensional form, and possibly learning how to be in oneness while we still live in duality.
Yeah. Well said. Really well said. I think that the word dimension has been bandied around on this planet and throughout the conscious community. Where have you gone? We've got your beautiful signature. Yeah, there you go. And if you think about dimensions from a scientific perspective, I think you said it, that time is the fourth dimension, right? And if you look at it from that sort of perspective way, the fifth dimension is like when you move out of the understanding of time, that there is no time, actually. When you move out of the fourth dimension into the fifth, you move into a more spacious understanding of reality, more awareness of who you are as a multidimensional being. And when you move into that understanding or that knowing that you are this multidimensional being, then you can play in different densities. So you can play in physicality, you can play in spirit bodies and astral forms, you can play in all sorts of different densities. And that fifth dimension is that awareness of those multidimensional densities. But so our awareness in the fourth dimension is time. And then the third dimension, like what's the third dimension, is space, isn't it? Time, space, and the second dimension. So yeah, it's just, have you seen that little thing of that person living in a flat zone, and he looks above and someone's in the third dimension, which is in space, and he doesn't understand it. So that's what a lot of the conscious teachers are teaching on this planet. We're talking about fifth dimensional reality, which is our awareness that we exist simultaneously in all different experiences all at once. We're in physical, we're spirit guides, we're galactic beings. But that doesn't actually, like, it's interesting with the Taiba prophecy, they talk about the category of planets. So there are different, and it's not dimensional realities, it's category of planets. So it's category of evolution of consciousness on the planet. So Earth as it exists at the moment, this is a one category planet. We're one, like we're number one. And the Tayubans, who they said, you have called us Palladians, on the planet that Michelle was taken to was a ninth category planet. And so they have different laws, different ways of living. And then there are all these categories in between. But dimensions is something different. So you can be in the fifth dimension on a ninth category planet, or you can be in the fourth dimension on a fifth category planet. Like it's quite interesting how it all works. But dimension is just awareness of who you are in space and, well, in space and time and outside of space and time, really. It's that multidimensional awareness. That's how I put the fifth dimension. And so there are many beings that are on this planet that are living in that fifth dimension because they have that awareness. And they can manipulate that. Like there's a guy on YouTube, I've had a few people on the show that know how to astral travel at will, like just can pop out of their body and be in another reality on an astral plane. So they're already living in the fifth dimension. And psychics are also accessing the fifth dimension, like me, channelers, psychics, when we're communicating with different forms, different organizations of intelligence. So when we're talking to spirit guides and dead people and, you know, higher selves and galactic consciousness, we're already operating in a fifth dimensional reality.
And you know, to go back to Yuga cycles and the books on the Yuga cycles, it speaks on there. It's interesting because they're not speaking about ETs per se, they're just talking more general, but you can really just kind of interchange the words to our reality. And they say that at the beginning of each age, there are avatars that are born that are emissaries of the next age. Right. So the next age is the Aquarian age, the Ascended age, the fifth dimension, whatever you want to call it, Dwapara Yuga. So there's all these people that come in that have tapped into that frequency to actualize it. And their purpose is to grassroots have everybody on Earth start thinking at that frequency. And then when we all start thinking of it, because reality first is a thought form, you know, and then if we all have those same similar thought forms of what is possible for us, then it starts becoming more of a physical realization.
Yeah, exactly. Critical mass. Wow, Neil, we've been all over the cosmos today. This has been
fun.
It's been a cool conversation. It's interesting because we're streaming on Portal to Ascension. You've got so many questions. I don't know how many. I've got a few. I've got quite a few people. We've got quite a few people on both platforms asking questions. So we can't keep up. I haven't kept up with all the questions, and I haven't even seen the questions on Facebook. Sorry about that. But it's cool going streaming. I might do all my shows streaming from now on. It's just so much easier than recording and editing.
Right? When you have people here. Well, like, you know, before you do your closing segment, since we're on my platform too, please share as well where people can find out and subscribe to your content too.
Well, on YouTube, it's I think it's at Blissful Beings. I started the YouTube. Blissful Beings is what I call my mob. Life is a journey of infinite possibility. Blissful Beings, it's what I call my spirit guides. I used to call them the mob when I first realized I was talking to a consciousness outside of my own understanding. And then I thought, oh, I better give them a prettier name. So I started calling them Blissful Beings. And but my show, the podcast show, is called Accentuate the Positive Media, Awakening and Expanding Consciousness, or ATP Media. And you can see it. I'm on all the platforms now. I'm on Rumble and Odyssey and Brighteon and BitChute and Daily Motion. I'm on all of them because I had a few taken down. Mind you, I had one taken down the other day, Neil, and I challenged it. I was talking to Cosme, what's her name, about Atlantis. Sarah Bressman, and about Atlantis. And we were talking about the allopathic, like that they had a similar thing happen then that we went through, and they had,
Mm.
I don't even
I
want to
got you.
say, what I'm saying. And so the AI bots, recognized the words, and they just took down. And so I challenged it and realized that we were talking about Atlantis. We weren't even talking about now. And they said, "Oh yeah," and they put it back up again. I'm like, "Thank you very much. I wish I had
Oh man,
challenged the other ones that were taken down, because I didn't challenge the other ones." But I'm
I've
like,
had 8 videos been taken down in 4 months because of the same thing. And
wow,
the last one was conversation with a walk-in extraterrestrial.
really?
I challenged them all, and they said no to all of them.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, so playing with other platforms. I'm looking for new platforms. So Adam Apollo's going to launch his new platform this year too. That's exciting.
Mhm.
Yeah, because I actually recorded it. He did an amazing talk on one of your conferences recently. Like, I can
Mhm.
hang on to that guy's every word. I just
Oh
love
yeah,
that guy.
Adam is incredible.
Adam is incredible. So he was talking on one of your conferences. So do you want to tell people about what's going on? You've got the Arcturian conference coming
Yeah.
up, which I think I'm speaking at. I think I am.
Yeah. You're speaking on that one. So I'll let everybody know what's happening with Portal to Ascension. We are, our new site is launching this week in like a week and a half or so. And I know we have a new site already, but this has been the halfway mark. So the new website, we've been in just the fine details of it all. And it's kind of like when you have that project that you keep saying, oh, tweak this, tweak that, tweak this. And then you do that so long that almost it's like 2.5 years later, and you're like, maybe we should just launch it. So I'm kind of at that place right now where we're just like, okay, we'll make the rest of the changes later. So we're gonna launch it, and it's going to look so amazing, so robust. We have a year and a half of events almost every single week that's going to be listed on there. We have 1,000 past events on there. We have 3,000 plus hours of free content. We have the ability to search by speaker, search by topic. We have hundreds of topics. It's like, Netflix on steroids plus consciousness, for lack of a better term.
Fabulous. It's
No, what I
fabulous.
did, I went to Amazon Prime, I went to Netflix, I went to 4 or 5 different platforms, and I took the best features of all of them and I put it in our website, guys. So
Great.
it's
Amazing.
like it is phenomenal site, and just 3,000 hours of free content, but we have 10,000 hours of content altogether since 2008 with hundreds of speakers. So please do check it out. Sign up for portal2ascension.org. And what's coming up soon is this weekend on January 27th, portal2ascension.org, upcoming events, Laura Eisenhower, Astrology of 2024 and Galactic Awakening. The next weekend, we have Saria and Michael White, Arcturian Integration and the Joy Ray. So Arcturian channeling and messages from the Arcturians. On Saturday, on February 17th, the first ever, I would say, conference on the Essenes and ancient Judea. So it's called the Essenes and Ancient Judea Conference. There's going to be like 10 of us speaking, and we're going deep. Like it just happens to go hand in hand with the fact that there's actually things going on in that area right now. So we're going to be talking about just the scenes in ancient Judea in general, but I'm going to bring in the ancestral healing to the actual deeper truth of what happened thousands of years ago that is playing out in that area right now. So that's on
Wow.
February 16th.
February
Then we
when?
have
18th? 18th?
February 17th.
17th. Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Karen, if you want to join any of these and check it out, let me know too, because there's going to be some really good, info shared.
Well, I'd be
And we
interested to hear about what the Essenes are saying about
All
ancient
right, I'll give
Judea.
you
Yeah,
that
it'd be
access.
interesting.
So
Yeah.
Brad Olson, Lost History of Our Pre-Diluvian Origins on February 24th. Extraterrestrial Genetic Discoveries and the Enigma of Hybrid Extraterrestrial Beings, March 9th. And then, fast forwarding a few weeks, Karen's going to be in a conference with us as well. And this is the first conference that we've ever put together specifically on the Arcturians. So that's on April 20th, all-day conference, around 9.5 hours, boom, nonstop Arcturian information. And it's probably going to become an annual event. So we have a lot of things coming up at Portal to Ascension. Best thing to do is just go to portal2ascension.org, upcoming events, check it out there. And if you really want to support us, guys, and just be a part of everything we're doing and support the work we're creating, search Portal to Ascension on the internet and just sign up to subscribe to our YouTube, join our Instagram, instagram.com/Portal to Ascension, and join our newsletter as well.
Yeah, beautiful. Beautiful. So if people want to go back, because we scheduled this for the beginning of the year and that didn't happen because you wanted to talk about the ancient history, and you did a
Mhm.
conference on that. If people are interested in that topic, and can they watch the recording of that conference?
Yes. So we did a conference called the True World History Conference. It was a 3-day
Okay.
event that was back in December, I believe. And it was probably honestly like one of the most fully encompassing events in the world that's ever taken place, specifically on the true history of humanity. 9 hours a
Wow.
day of history information. And if you're interested in that, go to the past events archives on Portal to Ascension, and you can sign up there. 3 days, you get unlimited replay access. And that's really, really informative because it goes deeper into prehistory and evidence that shows that we've been on this planet much longer than we've been told. And
Yeah.
the main thing is the fact that before 13,000 years ago, before the Great Flood, pre-Diluvian civilizations, that there are so many more advanced civilizations on the planet here. So really redefining our awareness around, oh, we're the most advanced we've ever been, to
Yeah.
wait a second, who are all these civilizations and how did they create these structures that they created, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you can check that one out. And we also did a free Star Beings conference, 4 days in a row. We ended last week, and that's also available on our YouTube as well for everybody to tune
Wow.
into.
I know you're a busy guy. I think I read in my 20s in the Seth books. I think Seth talked about a civilization that evolved, that wanted to evolve aggression out of their DNA, which they successfully did. They moved into an advanced state of being on planet Earth. They were one of those civilizations that evolved and then died out. But when they evolved the aggression out of their DNA, they couldn't fight against the elements because they had no aggression in their being. And they couldn't fight against, like, they couldn't protect themselves against storms and wind. And so they moved underground, and they lived underground, and they used sound as their technology. So they used sound to propel their vehicles. They used it to paint. They used it to cook with. And yeah, so that was, and then they died out.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's very,
that was in the
very deep.
Seth books,
Yeah.
channeled through Jane Roberts in the 60s. So yeah, there's been so many amazing, races and beings and experiences that have happened on this planet
So much, so
that
diverse.
our history doesn't even attempt to go into, like
No,
mainstream.
exactly. We're getting so many good questions, Karen. Do you want to stay on for a couple of hours and just keep going? Just like, all right, so Juliana's saying, is AI driven by ETs? What do you think? I already know your answer, but maybe you want to elaborate.
Well, I got immediately yes and no.
Yeah.
The technology is driven by ETs. The intention behind it is driven by humans. That's what I got. What did you
Mm.
get?
The way, say that again. The technology,
Is driven by ETs. The
uh-huh.
intention, the way we use it, is driven by humans. So what we're
Talking about,
doing,
we're speaking about
what we're
AI, right?
doing with it. Yeah, we're talking about AI. Yeah,
Yeah.
what we're doing with it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I don't know about that one. I would say that when it comes to if AI is controlled by if what is the question again here?
Driven by what's the question?
Is AI driven by ETs? Ah, so is the AI that we're seeing on the planet from ETs? Is that probably what she's asking? So I feel that there is AI that is ET connected, but then there's also AI that isn't ET connected.
Yeah. Okay. So I had a woman on the show a few times, me and names. Anyway, and she is connected to the Greys, and as a kid, she had all these experiences. And she talked about the advanced technology that they were giving us. And one of them was X-ray machines. Like there's this advance that has actually come out since she was a kid. She's in her 60s now, maybe even 70s. So she was given this information as a kid, and now we're seeing it on the planet. So it's a handheld device where you can scan the body and you can X-ray the body, but you can see the blood vessels and the bones. You can sort of shift it and see different things within the body. And I asked her a question. She came out to Australia to do a talk once. And I said, if I learned in energy medicine to be a human X-ray machine, like I could look inside your body, then surely why do we need the hardware if we can do it with our consciousness? And I said, surely they're more advanced. They're so advanced that they use their consciousness to do what we're doing with hardware. And she said, oh, absolutely. They didn't develop the hardware for their civilization. They developed it for our civilization as a stepping stone, moving into knowing that. So it's like this hardware we're using to be on Zoom, right? We could do this telepathically, and everybody who was telepathic can tune in, who's tuning in, whether now or later, could do it. but we're using hardware to do what we can do with our consciousness. We just haven't
Exactly.
evolved. So what they're showing me is that the AI that they're giving us is, again, that stepping stone, the technology of it, the hardware of it. But what we're doing with it, it's like fire. You can burn down somebody's house or you can cook a meal. Like, what you do with the technology is human driven. The technology itself is given to us from advanced civilizations.
Yeah. So it's like the level of consciousness that we're at is what defines how it's used. Everything is
Exactly.
neutral until that element of the human element comes, right?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
just for everybody out there, we're going to do an AI series on YouTube. So, especially if you haven't subscribed, you want to go ahead and subscribe, because we're going to do a whole series on AI where we're going to have people neutral and we're going to have people on both sides. Like, it might get heated at times because there's some people that are just adamant that AI is evil,
Yeah, I know.
on the other side of it all. So I feel we'll do like a 2 or 3 part series.
Yeah, I had a
Want to go
couple
deeper
on
into, come on with us.
I had a couple on the show a few years ago who channeled the Arcturians. They're a partner, husband and wife, and they use both their consciousness to channel the messages. And they're like, get rid of your iPhone, get rid of your computer. They're like, no, like they were so against it. And it was really extreme. And I was like, okay, because they actually came from a future reality where it had all gone pear-shaped. So that was their reality. So there was a big warning from them. But I think the warning is not the AI itself. It's, again, the consciousness around what we're doing with it. So are we going to do it to rip people off? We're going to do it to trick people, to kill people? Or are we going to do it to advance the civilization? Like, what are we going to do with it? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's inevitable too. It's here to stay. It's not
Yeah.
just going to disappear.
Yeah. Well, okay, let me ask you a question on this. So there's this
Mhm.
idea that there are these AI bots that infect universes.
Yeah.
And then there's been an idea that there's going to be some solar flash that's going to kill all the AI bots and we won't be infected by it. What do you think about that stream of thought?
So I already know a couple of people that are really famous in this world that speak on that. Many
Uh-huh.
people tuning in probably are into them. So I don't want to like get too much into speaking on specific things that can connect to others, because there's people, some out there that are just saying like that is what happened to our galaxy and our solar system, that
Yeah,
AI has
yeah,
come and done that.
yeah.
Now, I feel, right, tuning into this, that some ET races that maybe have negative intentions and agenda have used AI and certain technologies to infest certain areas, but it's not maybe a hive mind like in Star Trek. The hive is like this AI robots that go and take over that is just purely disconnected. I feel
Yeah.
that certain races could have utilized technology like that. Plus, I think a lot of ET races have their own AI. They have their own self-organizing mechanisms and
Yeah,
and
yeah.
um, spacecraft and stuff that are organic, but aren't maybe don't have a soul. Like even a spacecraft that's an organic spacecraft that actually has its own ability to make its own decisions, right?
Mm-hmm,
But
mm-hmm,
isn't a spacecraft with the actual soul in it? Would that be
mm-hmm,
AI?
mm-hmm.
So I feel that there's technology that is what we would classify as AI being utilized throughout the galaxy, but it's the level of consciousness. Now, whether there's like some sort of like we see in a lot of those movies where there's this AI structure in the middle of the universe and it's going from galaxy to galaxy in order to take over and destroy worlds.
Right.
I don't really feel is going on.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it could be going on in somebody's reality
But
because
hey, let me
we
just
can
say,
we
let
can
me say
create
that
any
this.
experience, right? We can create what you
Yeah.
could create what
Well,
you imagine. If you imagine that you want to experience it, go for it.
right. And as I said that, I almost have to say the opposite of what I just said too. Because I had to catch myself immediately. I already believe that everything under the sun is happening and can happen,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know?
Mm-hmm.
So now if that is affecting our reality and we've been infused with AI, because that's when it gets to a lot of some people out there saying, well, we're being taken over to this AI hive mind in our reality right now, trying to destroy us. I don't really know if that's the case or not. I know that I feel that there's a lot of extraterrestrial agendas on this planet, and some of them are nefarious, right? But whether the source of that is AI, I'm not too sure.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, that's the AI question. All right. Well, we might. How long have we been yakking? We've been on here for ages. Indigo,
Almost
what's she
2 hours.
saying?
Yeah.
Nice, Julian. Exactly. I think there may be AI from Armand. Yeah, there's lots of amazing. Thanks everyone for tuning in. It's been amazing to be streaming on Portal to Ascension, as well as I'm on my Facebook, streaming on my Facebook and streaming on YouTube. And yeah, I only have, how many platforms can I have? How many streaming platforms can you stream on, Neil? You're streaming on like what, 10, 12? I'm only streaming
Yeah, on
on about
StreamYard, like 5, like 6, 7, I think on StreamYard.
6 or 7. I'm only streaming on about 4, I think, at the moment. But it's been fun. It's been fun. It's yearly catch up.
Yeah.
Thanks
This
again
has
for
been
being on the
very
show.
inspirational. Thank you, Karen, for having me.
Yeah, well, thanks for finally coming on. Thanks.
You made it happen.
It's always fun. We made it happen. It's always fun to talk because anyway, as I said to you, I had a feeling you might not make the last one, and then I booked someone in this. I booked someone in this week, but I didn't book them in on the time that I had booked you in.
Yeah.
Because I thought he might show up, he might not. And I booked somebody else. I was telling Neil before we pressed the recording, and she showed up in her dressing gown and she didn't have any microphone or lighting on. And I said, could you change that? And she said, no. And I said, no, forget it. I'm not going to talk to you. It's like, I'm not going to spend, 2 days talking to you and editing and stuff if you can't even, turn up outside of your dressing gown. Like, could you put some clothes on? Anyway.
Well, I think it was meant to happen now. I wasn't ready back then, And honestly, like my internet went down an hour ago, and I didn't think it was going to come back on. So I was like, "Oh my god, I got to text Karen to say I cancel again."
Oh
and
my
then it
god!
miraculously came back on for you.
There you go. There you go. They're looking after us. Thanks again, darling. It's always a joy and a pleasure to talk to you. I look forward to channeling the Arcturians during the next conference and checking out more of what you've got going on Portal to Ascension. Big love.
Everybody.
Thanks, everyone, for listening and streaming, listening to the streaming. We'll catch you next time. Now, how do I turn this?